All right, welcome in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 7 a.m. Thursday, October 17th, right here on Jocks 94.5. G-Mac, how are you this morning?
I'm good, buddy. I'm just sitting down here in Tuscaloosa, hanging. Going to be going to practice here in about 3 hours, meeting with the coaches after that, and having a nice football-filled day before I head to Knoxville tonight, buddy. So pretty excited about it.
How are we looking at this game right now? If you're talking about just the matchup itself, what needs to happen, like what's sticking out to you after studying these two teams throughout the course of this week?
Man, there's so many different directions this thing can go just with the breakdown. I mean, what needs to happen, what will happen, what you'd like to see from Bama, what you'd like to see from Tennessee. I mean, there's really so many different ways. I think probably the biggest storyline right now is it's good versus good and questionable versus questionable. That's I think the outside perception. Like I think people look at Bama's offense and say, all right, that's a great group. I certainly wouldn't push back on that. I think that group is really good and really talented and has been excellent at times this year. And then you look at Tennessee's defense, number 2 nationally as far as pretty much like top 5 in several categories. Number 2 nationally, I believe, in like EPA and all these other defensive efficiency metrics and stuff like that. So they're excellent. And then on the other side, Tennessee's offense has been struggling last couple of weeks. Big plays have kind of disappeared. Just hasn't been very consistent. Missed throws from Nico Iamaleava. And then Bama's defense, people are kind of shooting holes in it since the halftime of the Georgia game. So I think that's the perception. I don't know if that's the reality, but that'll certainly be the external narrative going into the game.
From a matchup perspective, what has given the Tennessee offense headaches over the last couple of weeks? Do you see Alabama as having those things that they can present and continue to force Tennessee to struggle just a little bit offensively?
Yeah, I think they can limit the run game. I feel pretty good about that. But it's going to require improved tackling and better linebacker play and better safety play. And they're going to have to play more physical in this game than they have up to this point of the season. So I think they can do it. I do think it'll be a great challenge, but I do think it can be done. So that's probably the most important part of their defensive plan. I think eliminating some free access throws is important. If you look at how they played against South Carolina, there were some plays left on the field by South Carolina. Like there were some guys open. But I think they adjusted in the second half, played a little bit more man, and that was actually beneficial. So I think we're going to see maybe a little more man from Alabama moving forward. I think that they've tried to go with the vision defense. They've tried to put those things in. And they're just giving up a little too much space. They're just giving up a little bit too much free access. So I think Bama can do some things defensively to give Tennessee some fits. But it really starts with the pass rush, and it starts with tackling by the safeties. The safeties are just not super physical players right now. I'm just if we're going to be honest, that they're not safeties that are 220-pound thumpers. Like they're cover guys, which is okay. But they're going to be forced to tackle in this game, and that's got to be a matchup that Bama tries to win.
Speaking of Alabama safeties, space, secondary play, I thought you would find it interesting. Spoke to a mutual friend of ours yesterday about that 4th and 9 play that South Carolina was able to convert for a touchdown. Was not in the game plan going into that week, just so you know. So.
It's a good plan. It's a good play if you can protect long enough to allow the wheel to uncover. I mean, I know Bama can be like I saw a lot of people breaking this down. Like, is it a coverage bust or is it a good play? Well, good plays lead to coverage busts. Was it a coverage bust in theory? Yes, but do you blame Malachi Moore for covering the post when there isn't somebody in his deep half or deep third until 3.5 seconds after the ball is snapped? Like, no. So that's why, and I love that play. The big question is, usually I've thrown a touchdown on that play in the red zone. It's a post wheel concept. Everybody has them, but in the red zone, the field's condensed. So you're not running 50 yards downfield for the play to happen. It's going to happen on, inside the 20, so the receiver's going to run 22 yards. Post wheels are not new. They're not unique, but they're bold because you got to be able to protect them. So South Carolina was able to. One of the few times in the game in which Bama's pass rush didn't hold up, they went with a 3-man rush with a quarterback spy, and they got him. And so guess what? That happens. It's the SEC, and you have good coaches, and Dowell Loggins is a heck of a play caller, I think.
No, he's fantastic, and obviously showed that he can make some in-game adjustments there, even if it's not things that they've repped throughout the course of the week. So when we look at Alabama and Tennessee this weekend, the Alabama secondary is going to be one of the first things that comes to mind. And can they be a little bit better, clean some things up, as you stated, maybe play a little bit more man, and not continue to not give up those explosive plays that Tennessee has sort of struggled to find. And then you come down to, can they win with fewer in the box? And that's been a big challenge for a lot of teams when playing Tennessee's offense. Some have been able to pull it off. Not many have. And you and I talked yesterday, Greg, about how Kane Womack decides to split it up. Does he decide to sort of split the middle between those receivers that are going to be out 4 or 6 inches away from being out of bounds, and then obviously that tackle box, which is going to be a long way away. So you try to take away the screen game, quick throws. You try to take away the run game. I've heard both defensive coordinators on both sides of it. I've heard guys say, we're not going to let them run the football. Go ahead and throw it out there. You can spit it out all day, and we'll try to make tackles. We'll try to play it straight up, and we'll take our chances with that. You want to keep moving the chains? Fine. We're not giving up explosive runs because we have 4 or 5 guys in the tackle box. And then the things that Tennessee does with the tight end are what I don't think they get a lot of credit for. I think their tight ends play pretty good football. And it's not the utilization of them so much in the passing game, but what they do with that group from an alignment standpoint, a blocking standpoint, that's where they can steal your eyes a little bit. That's where they can get you flowing the wrong direction, and then maybe spit a couple of throws out to them at some point during the game, depending on how you're playing it. All those things are going to be important. I guess, Greg, the good news is it may not be as dependent on the second level to be successful in this game as it has the last 2 games. Just because of kind of what you're going to get. And not saying that the linebackers can be completely inefficient or not show up, but I just don't feel like the Alabama linebackers have to be as good or great as they needed to be in the previous 2 games in this game to ultimately be successful.
Yeah, it's probably true because they're not going to be the guys that are unaccounted for. But if Alabama does employ the man coverage that I anticipate, or that I think they actually played well with in the second half. Like, people will look at the third downs in the second half and some things like that, but I just didn't think there was many guys running free in the second half. Like, I looked at how many guys were running free and how many easy completions were on the field, and there were some near misses too. I mean, Lenora Sellers rolling out to his right, guys behind the defense in a cover 2, and he just narrowly misses number 7. I think that's Larvadan or whatever, which would have been a touchdown if they complete the throw. So, I mean, there were some plays left on the field because of the zone coverages, and they basically just said, forget about it. Like, we'll just play more man, and it was beneficial. But the linebackers, if you play man, somebody's got to play man on the quarterback when you have a guy with wheels like this. And I saw some pretty egregious efforts tackling. Not the effort was good, but the technique not so great by more than just one of the linebackers. So if they are responsible for the spy, they got to tackle better and they got to be good in the open field. And there might be a situation where they're one-on-one with Nico Iamaleava and they got to drop him. Because last week when Lenora Sellers got out on the edge, it was a quick pump fake and one of the linebackers goes flying and he runs past him for 11 more yards. So that's something that you got to be mindful of as well, is that those guys, if you do play that man, you're going to probably have some spies, and those guys haven't been doing a great job of tackling space right now.
No, they have not. All right, here's what we got for you today. Top 3 into this hour. Anwar Richardson talks Texas football with us at 8 o'clock. Texas, Georgia, a massive matchup. We're going to begin to dive into that one this hour. Phones will be open this hour for you as well if you want to get in. You have questions. 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. You can text in 205-834-9450. Also, Rubik's Cubelic, back into the 8 o'clock hour. Wimp Sanderson, 9 o'clock, will be with us. I think a blue plate. I'm not really sure if he's decided if he's doing that or not yet. And then Rody Nabulsi's with us at 9:30. Some Georgia injuries we need updates on as they head into a massive matchup with Texas this weekend. I want to get into that game. They'll begin talking about that game, but we got a lot to get to as far as Auburn, Missouri today. Need to begin to discuss that one a little bit. South Carolina, Oklahoma, the game that I'm going to be on, I think is going to be a really good. There's one thing weird about this weekend in the SEC, Greg, is I'm trying hard, and one thing that I think is already happening is we got some great football games, and I feel like this happened last weekend, and I feel like it's happening this weekend. We've got some potentially great games that both teams are not really in playoff contention that people are kind of brushing to the side. I think Auburn, Missouri could be a really competitive game. Could be a fun game. South Carolina, Oklahoma.
Especially when Auburn wins.
Toot, you keep tooting that horn. Good for you. South Carolina, Oklahoma, I think could be a fantastic football game. LSU, Arkansas could be a really good game. And I know people are excited about Arkansas and they're 5-1, and that's great. Yes, but we know Georgia, Texas, Kentucky, Florida could be a great game. And that's one that both of those teams need. If Florida gets this one and takes some momentum into the back half of the season, which everybody looked at this impossible task, this impossible November and half of October, and they were to get another, let's just say, 2 down the stretch, I mean, all of a sudden things might look a little bit different there in Gainesville. What happens to Stoops if he were to drop this one? Like, how is his tenure viewed then there in Lexington? What happens to Auburn if they lose this game and they go to 2-5, winless in the SEC? Missouri could get to 6-1 and be right there knocking on the door of the playoff, in the playoff hunt. I don't think Alabama, Tennessee is necessarily an elimination game, but boy, do you put yourself into a corner if you drop this one, Greg, and you're talking about the playoffs. So we know what that one is, but I just think there's a lot of good games specifically around the SEC, and there's some great ones around college football too. Miami, Louisville is going to be great. Oak State, BYU could be really good. Nebraska, Indiana might be one you hear about in the 8 o'clock hour. So Michigan, Illinois, going to be a good one. It's just, I think there's some games out there that aren't Georgia, Texas, or Alabama, Tennessee that I just don't want to start forgetting about some of these games that could be really good because they might not be 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, I think that having 2 playoff teams, I'm not trying to sit there and say that it's all about the playoff. It's not. I think that there's a lot to be gained for teams, even in the event in which they're unlikely to get to the playoff. Like Auburn, for example. I mean, they lose this one. Y'all, I mean, it's going to get real dark before dawn if they lose this one. Like, this is a gotta have it. Florida, not saying that Billy Napier's job's secure in the event in which he wins, but if he wins, like you said, gives you a little momentum, has you feeling pretty good. Had the ball in your racket last week and you fumble a QB sneak on the goal line. Like, things happen. You know what I mean? So I think that we do have a tendency to navigate towards the playoff discussion. I understand that. And don't get me wrong, like, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, Texas are going to do 10 million viewers each, probably north of that. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of good ball being played, and it's as much for the teams that could play spoiler down the stretch as it is for the teams that are actually competing against each other for one of those playoff elimination games. So I think it's interesting. And by the way, back to the Bama-Tennessee playoff situation, like, I think Bama can survive a loss, but I don't know if Tennessee can. That's I think, going to be really interesting because Tennessee still has Georgia, and Tennessee has, you know, I mean, playing Georgia is not a game that has been real kind to Tennessee, and it's on the road. So I think this is one that Tennessee absolutely has to have. I don't know if it's one that Bama has to have, but if I'm Bama, I certainly would love to have a second great win on my resume before the clock even turns to November and you have LSU and a couple other tricky ones coming up.
Absolutely. All right, weather's cooled off. God, yesterday was incredible. Just felt a little bit chilly for most of the day. It's great to be outside. And as we head further into football season, you know that means changes in the weather are coming. Protect your HVAC system with a checkup from a trained comfort specialist. So when cold weather hits, you'll have peace of mind. You're protected by America's most reliable and trusted HVAC brand. Find a comfort specialist near you at train.com. Remember, it's hard to stop a train. When we come back, Georgia, Texas, we're going to begin to dive into it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Dodgers smashed the Mets last night 8-0, lead the series 2-1. 3 home runs for the Dodgers last night. Shohei Ohtani hits a 3-run shot in the 8th. Buehler struck out 6. Dodgers combined to strike out 13. They'll go again tonight, 7:08 FS1. Yamamoto on the mound tonight. He was fantastic last time out against the Padres. Quintana throws for the Mets tonight. Yanks at Cleveland, 4:08 on TBS. Schmidt and Boyd going to go there in that one. Love a little late afternoon postseason baseball. Tough to beat as the playoffs continue to roll there. A game that's going to have a lot to do with the college football playoffs. Georgia and Texas are coming up this weekend. The number 1 scoring defense in America is what Texas brings to the table. 38 points they have allowed on the season. 3 touchdowns this Texas defense has allowed. What's the path offensively for Georgia, Greg? Because it's been an offense that at times has been great, at times has looked a little bit one-dimensional, and they're dealing with injuries on the offensive line. It's never going to be easy. Carson Beck, as we've seen him in certain halves of games, look confused, lost, to look incredible. What does this offense need to be, in your opinion, to find consistent success against this Texas defense?
Block them up and take some shots. I think it's a pretty simple recipe. So far, and I think this is an interesting nugget. Are you prepared for this?
Okay, wait, let me get ready. Okay, I'm good.
Yes, absorb. Put on your absorption hat. Texas has faced the following passing offenses in college football. Michigan, 132. UL Monroe, 131. Oklahoma, 123. Colorado State, 102. Mississippi State, 45. But that was Michael Van Buren's first career start. And the best offense that they've faced this year, UT San Antonio, which is 44th in the sport, and they couldn't block them. So I don't think there's anybody that has really had a chance to really block them and throw it deep on them, and that was Texas's Achilles heel last year. And I don't know if they're better, worse, same as last year, but I know this. I know I'd like to see it. I think Georgia can block them, and I think Georgia can take some shots. So that's what I expect from Georgia in this game.
I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the blocking part. I think that the Georgia tackles have struggled in pass pro this year. Now, there have been a lot of times in which that ball's come out or Carson Beck has been able to move and get the ball out or just thrown it away. But I think that is a major point of concern for me because it's been a little sloppy and it's been a little bit inconsistent. Now, when we talked about injuries, moving guys around, that complicates it. This group of tight ends continues to come on. Maybe that's a massive help in this game. But we know Barron Sorrell can move out and rush off the edge. We've seen what Colin Simmons has turned into. He's been fantastic as a true freshman. Trey Moore is a proven edge commodity in college football, can rush the passer. Even Ethan Burke can move out there, be pretty effective. I just think they have multiple guys they can hit you with. Hell, they'll put Anthony Hill out there on the edge and let him rush a little bit, and he's tweaked upward, and he can do some different things from the outside. I think that's a massive portion of this game, and if the offensive plan goes to where you think it may go, that's going to have to happen for Georgia, and it's going to have to be better than it's been because they'll get there. I think they'll get home. Now, everything else inside, I think that those guys have played better than a lot of us thought that they would collectively, whether it's Alfred Collins, Bill Norton, Vernon Broughton. They've got pretty good numbers inside that have played B+, A- football the majority of this year. It's not A++, 2 at a time like it was last year, but it's been fine. It's been good enough for them to go win. And we both said it. We don't really know what this secondary is yet. I did think in coverage they looked pretty good when asked to play man last week. I know what the receiver situation was, but it's a good point you bring up. We don't really know maybe what this pass defense is collectively, but I do think that I'm pretty confident in what those edge guys can do, and that's going to say a lot as to who finds a way to win this game.
Yeah, I think what I can't figure out is why the left tackle at Georgia has all of a sudden become as average as he's become. Like, he was a good player last year, I feel like. And maybe I just misremember.
I thought he was going to have a big year. I really did.
I just can't figure it out. I mean, like, Xavier Truss is Xavier Truss. Like, he's been out there at right tackle for a while. He's never been an elite pass blocker, so that one wasn't that surprising. He's a good player, but to see Ernest Green struggle the way he struggled in pass pro is really surprising. I just don't really understand it. I don't think the center is anywhere near as good as Cedric Van Pran. I think they will miss Tate Ratledge for sure the rest of the year if he doesn't come back. It's not that their two guards aren't good. It's just I don't think they're great. I do think that Oscar Delp has come on quite a bit at tight end as a blocker. That's helpful. But I think Carson Beck, frankly, like, he's got to be better, man. I just don't know what else to tell you. I mean, the kid's got outrageous talent. I mean, really, really gifted thrower, really natural thrower, super accurate, naturally accurate, kind of an effortless player, right? Well, he's got to cut it loose, man. And I think this is the game where he reminds everybody, like, hang on a second, like, I'm still dang good. Like, people have kind of forgotten that, but I can still go. And if you look at how I played against Bama in the fourth quarter, like, that's in there. We just haven't seen it very much. Right now, he's 19th in QBR. His off-target percentage is nearly 10%. He is 26th on EPA per dropback. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, this guy was top 5 in almost every category last year, and that was in a better year for quarterback play with what we saw from, Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and all the other guys that got drafted in the top 10 or whatever. So I think this could be the game where he comes back and everyone's like, all right, hang on a second. All right, this dude can still go, because we just haven't seen it this year.
Half their throws, actually technically less than half their throws, are 19 yards or fewer through the air this year. So that leads further into what you're saying about this Georgia team may need to do and may want to do in this game. It goes back to your initial point there. Are you going to have time for that? Are you going to have time for those routes to develop? You're going to have time to be able to consistently push the ball down the field. I actually think that there's got to be, and last week should be a good indicator. I think if folks really watched that game last week, really, I'll say the last 2 weeks, if you really paid attention to what Georgia has done the last 2 weeks, you should have a very clear picture. Now, not because it was over and over and over and over and over, but you should have a very clear picture based on some individual plays of what Trevor Etienne can be and how dynamic he can be. Now, it hasn't been force-feeding him the football. It hasn't been, just pumping him downhill 35 times. But I think he's got to get going early, because I think he's the one that can bring some balance to the offense. And I think they're going to have that at some point, Greg. They can't just be – this team throws the ball 62% of the time. I don't think you can necessarily live there in a game like this with these kind of athletes up front that are going to be teeing off and coming after you. And it could be extensions of the run game through the air, quick throws in the flat. But I think Etienne's got to get going early. I think he is a massive piece to Georgia's success on offense if they're going to win this game.
I just don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I mean, I don't see – I mean, Pete Kwiatkowski is really, really – I mean, he's cut from the Washington cloth. Like, he's going to play 4 3/4, and you're not running it. You remember when Vita Vea and all those guys were playing D tackle? Like, you're not running it. It just, that ain't happening. So I do think it's going to be, they're going to have to do some simulated handoffs, and that's Etienne in the flat, Etienne on a swing. Just manufacture some touches for him, because I do think he is such a vital piece of this offense. I think him and Lawson Lucky are the two guys that need to be unleashed. Now, Lawson Lucky's he's not a burner. He's not great after the catch like Brock Bowers was, but he's really loose. He's got good hips. Like, he can create some separation at tight end that is rare and difficult to defend. So all that being considered, I'm a big believer in their personnel offensively. I still think there's more in there. My biggest questions about Georgia are not on the offensive side. They are on the defensive side. As crazy as that may sound, their secondary is their weak link, which is crazy. I think Bama fans know that because they saw it front and center in the performance against the Tide a few weeks ago, but I don't know how many people are looking at this because they're like, oh, Malachi Starks. That's all they see. They see Malachi Starks as, oh, well, they must be great. Well, I don't know about that, man. I think their corners are a liability. I think Dan Jackson's a really solid player, but I don't think he's a guy that, is necessarily all-American caliber starting, level player in a Kirby Smart-led defense. Like, he's not Javon Bullard. Like,
He's
a
been
good
pretty
player.
active recently, though. I mean, he's been making some plays last couple
Oh,
of
he's
games.
productive as heck. But, like, if I can get him on an island as a play caller, like, I feel great about that. It's not a negative. That's most safeties, by the way. If I can get Caleb Downs on an island, I feel great about that too. But I just don't know if they're as sound across the board from a cover standpoint as they have been in the past. And I think they really miss Kamari Lassiter. I think they really miss Javon Bullard. And I think Malachi Stark is having an average season by his standards. So it'll be really interesting, I think, to see how and I love Sark. I can't wait to see how Sark attacks him, because that's going to be fascinating. What does he see as the weak link, and how does he go after it?
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, listen, this top to bottom, this thing's going to be fun to watch. If you need to get into a new home to watch it, Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group can help. Call 205-542-1996. Visit GustyGoulasGroup.com. Find out all the different resources that they have to be able to help you get rid of your home or get into a new home. They've served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area, so they have an idea what inventory is coming up, what inventory is going to be available before it even hits the market. Brokered by eXp Realty, so they're going to be able to help you find everything you need from a real estate perspective in Central Alabama. GustyGoulasGroup.com. Heck, just Google Gusty Goulas Group, and you'll see over 830 five-star Google reviews. Contact the only agent I know that I would trust if I needed somebody to sell my home in the Birmingham area. That's Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group, 205-542-1996, or visit GustyGoulasGroup.com today and start packing. All right, when we come back, let's continue this conversation, go a little bit to the Georgia defense, talk more about some of the issues, some of the problems. How will Sark attack it? Next, Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:34 a.m. Thursday, October 17th. Jocks 94.5. Glad you're with us. Text into the show 205-834-9450. You can also hit us up on the Buyers Right hotline, 800-239-9569. McElroy in Tuscaloosa getting ready to go to practice and be a part of meetings over there today as he gets ready for Alabama, Tennessee. We'll talk more about that game next hour. But we're talking Georgia, Texas now, a game that has so much meaning, is going to do so much for the college football playoff, and obviously going to do a big number from a ratings perspective just because of the two brands, where the two teams are ranked. We were talking Georgia defense before we went to break, GMAC, and I want to get back to that, but tell our listeners about B-Drive before we finish that conversation.
Well, they've been serving Alabama and customers here in the community for 60 years. And they continue to back things up with the life of the structure warranty. It's great peace of mind for me as a homeowner to know that if I have them come out, the largest waterproofing company in the country, come out and fix my crawl space or basement, I'm good to go. I'm in a great spot. If I get them to come out, knowing for as long as that structure's standing, they will come out and get it taken care of. And it's 12 months interest-free. So you're going to get interest-free, no payments for 12 months by the best waterproofing company in the country and the largest waterproofing company in the country with the strongest warranty. So go check them out today, 942-1976, or visit bdryalabama.com.
All right, so when you think about that Georgia defense, Greg, what it is, some of the weaknesses that you said are there, we're both interested in how Sark attacks this thing. How do you think he goes about it? Where I think it could be a little bit of a similar plan to what we saw against Oklahoma last week, kind of east-west early, lull you to sleep a little bit, then maybe try and hit some misdirection or backside runs. The thing that Roman and I talked about Monday night that I think Georgia has to be great at, not very good at, but great at. I don't really know what else to call this, but I'm going to call it, I think Georgia has to be very wary of detachments. And that doesn't make sense because a lot of people haven't heard that. But when I watch Texas's offense this year, they do such a good job of taking people that are in the core, close to the core. It could be a running back. It could be a receiver. It could be a tight end attached. And it could be a running back moving back in to the backfield and then back out of the backfield. All the folks that are in there close to the football that Sark gets away from the football and then utilizes in the passing game. And it can be different bodies, different positions, different times. It could be a toss sweep to the left, and you're going to get a different running back out to the right. It could be outside zone to the right, and it could be a tight end lined up to the strength back to the left. It just like he does such a good job of taking people who are close to the football and then utilizing them away from the ball. That's where I think Georgia's got to be great in this game because, Greg, that's free grass. It's free yards. I mean, you're stealing a lot of the times when you hit these passes. Gunnar Helm was great with it last week. He's a super valuable weapon for Texas. I think that's the piece of this game that Georgia has to be really good at least just locating it and knowing that it could potentially be there for yards. Because if you keep giving those to Sark, man, like it's already hard enough as it is to stop his offense. You give him those freebies, and you're going to have a long day.
The one thing I really like about this version of Texas's offense is I feel like the weapons are a little more interchangeable than they were a year ago. I also love the utilization of the tight end. I mean, Gunnar Helm's really become a difference maker for him, so that's been nice. But last year they had very clear and established roles. Like Xavier Worthy was your catch and run guy. Like get him in space, get him touches. He's going to make you pay. You had A.D. Mitchell, who was the deep ball guy. He was going to go and make the contested catch. He had great length. He was the red zone guy. And then you had Jordan Whittington, who was your third down specialist in the slot. Now they can all play everything. So he can create a favorable – he is now looking at it and saying, all right, well, I got guys that can exploit everything you have. And when he was at Bama, that's what he did a great job of. Remember when the guys were playing rock, paper, scissors on the field to figure out who's going to catch the touchdown? That's a great luxury as a play caller to have when you have guys that are interchangeable, and it didn't matter. All you do is identify the weakness in the secondary, and it doesn't matter what guy's playing that position. That route's going to win. So you don't have to be like overwhelmingly thoughtful about, hey, well, this guy's really good in short area quickness, so we need to get him against the long, stiff safety. That, I think, is going to be really interesting to see how he employs and what he identifies as the weak link in the Georgia defense. And remember, against Bama, I mean, the side-to-side stuff killed Georgia early. Killed them.
Yes.
with the lateral jet sweeps and the perimeter runs. Like, that really wore him out. Now, I do think Bama did a great job in trading tight ends and adjusting passing strength and kind of catching Georgia with bad numbers on a number of different occasions. Like, they schemed him up beautifully in that game. So I don't know if it's as much of a weakness as it was game plan specific, but I will be curious because, hey, I bet it's a copycat league. Sark's going to try it. We'll see how that works out.
Absolutely. So the Georgia defense going to have its hands full. At the point of attack, though, Greg, at the line of scrimmage, how do you anticipate Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann sort of trying to handle that portion of this Texas offense?
You mean like what? Like, do they blitz? Like, what do you mean?
I mean, like how do you think that they're going to lean their front? Like, I
think you can get after the center, and I think Jake Major's a good, solid player, but I think he's smarter than he is talented. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's
super fair.
And that's not a negative, by the way.
He's
like
also
Jeff
really
Saturday.
Smart. So, I mean,
Jeff Saturday is a fringe Hall of Famer and was smarter than he was talented. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great, great key to.
All right, I think we dropped Greg.
Unintentionally, not purposely.
He was talking sinners. We're not going to drop him when he's talking sinners. Right. I mean, that's not the time. I mean, he starts nerding out on wide receivers and routes and quarterbacks. I think that would be a good time to just kind of hit that button and say, we don't need you anymore. We'll be good. We'll go to a break, try to get Greg back, try to continue this conversation about Georgia and Texas this weekend. Hopefully he'll still want to talk about offensive linemen and center play. Don't know if he's going to be interested in that. You should be interested in Dale's, though, because football season's here. I've tackled a lot of game day meals in my time. Nothing compares to the flavor boost from Dale's seasoning. If you're heading to a tailgate, this marinade is your MVP. Just 30 minutes with Dale's. Your meats and veggies transform from bland to bold. Ribs, burgers, veggies. If you're grilling those up, Dale's versatility is a game changer. Make every bite count and score big with Dale's seasoning. Back with more on Georgia and Texas on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Next. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Lost you for a moment there, Greg.
Ugh.
Talking Georgia and Texas. Before we continue that conversation, move on to the rest of your analysis of centers across the SEC. If you're looking to move into a new home, who should you call?
B. Crocker Moving Search. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether you need your whole home packed to move, your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchase and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's CrockerMovingServices.com. That's CrockerMovingServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
All right, so I did want you to finish your point, though, just about the Texas offensive line, and I agree with you. I mean, Jake Majors is not, Dermontti Dawson. He's not one of the Pouncey twins playing inside. That's not necessarily his game. But, I mean, when you hear Coach Flood talk about what he will – Kyle Flood was telling me that Jake Majors will redirect running backs in pass protection, like while the football's addressed. He's that intelligent. He handles that much. Really good player. I don't think there's anything wrong with you saying more smart than talented or athletic. That's fine. But I just, from the standpoint of how that matchup goes, we know there are certain individuals that Georgia can line up in different places, 10, 11 specifically, how they want to utilize them, how they want to try to attack. Because I feel like if you attack too much against this group, it makes that offensive line's job just a little bit easier because the ball comes out so quickly.
So it's funny that you say that because I said, look, and saying he's smarter than he is talented is not a negative. Like Jeff Saturday is a fringe Hall of Famer and was, smarter than he is talented. So to me, like that's the ultimate sign of respect. You get the most out of your ability, but you make up for it with supreme intellect. It's funny that you also say that because I used the Pouncey twins as an example when I was talking and I didn't know I wasn't connected, but I digress. Looking at how I would attack them, Georgia does this a lot already. They do a lot of internal pressures with cross dog. So linebackers, basically one going to the right side of the center, the other linebacker hitting the left side of the center all at the same time. Like I would anticipate a heavy dose of A-gap pressure. Quinn's not super mobile. So I think if you can pressure Texas up the middle, you have a chance to have success. And I think that's an A-gap is the gap between the center and the guard. So I think you're going to get a lot of that. And to force the ball out pretty quickly, you have ends in that case that will be flying to the flat in simulated pressure looks to help on some of the jet screens and smoke screens that Texas will throw. So I think all of that's really, really important is how much internal pressure do you get from Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann?
It's going to be fun to watch. All right. We bring it to you each and every day. Does not have to be sports. Sometimes is. It's our top three. Damian, what do you have on tap for us today?
October 17th, it's National Pasta Day.
Didn't know that. No.
It's also National Payback a Friend Day.
Okay.
Y'all got any bets?
Don't feel like I owe anybody any money right now. This is good.
And GMAC, for you, it's National Mulligan Day.
I don't need it. Don't need them. Stripe show.
Save that till March.
Shout out to the Hilltopper participants in Vestavia. Big tournament coming up today. Huge
Western
member
Kentucky
guests on the mountain.
Invitational?
No, Hilltopper's a member guest at Vestavia. A lot of good participants, a lot of good pals that are in the field. Should be a heck of a matchup. We'll break it down on Monday.
What's the stimp meter looking like over there?
I love that your natural go-to when watching golf and or evaluating golf is always the stimp meter.
How deep is the rough cut? What's that second cut looking like?
Ooh, very good. Good terminology. I'm guessing that the stimp meter is probably rolling about 13.
T-box is playing up or back? What are we looking at?
They'll move them up.
Yeah, make it easy.
Vestavia is wide open. It's a bomber's paradise.
Really
just swing hard. That's basically all.
So DeChambeau would do well out there.
Yeah, he could score there. Yes.
Would he be a member though?
I don't know. Does DeChambeau not like memberships?
I don't know if he would vibe with the Vestavia crowd. But they vibe with him, maybe.
I don't know enough about Bryson, and I don't know enough about the Vestavia crowd, but I'll be curious to get more offline. I really need to know what your perception is here.
All right, what's your top three today?
It's Eminem's birthday, fellas. So let's do our top three Eminem songs.
God, I don't know. I have to go look them up. That's going to take time.
I'm Slim Shady. Yes, I'm the real Shady.
Attaboy. Is that one of yours?
Yeah, Lose Yourself.
I don't know. I don't know
Real
the
Slim
names
Shady.
of all of them.
And gosh, there's so many good ones. Eminem. You want to talk about a guy that has been around for a minute?
Yeah.
Golly, he's had a good career.
He has. Very controversial, but if you get him a pen and pad, he knows exactly what to do.
Is it really that controversial though? Just because he says things?
I think word choice.
He just says things. Like he doesn't really do anything controversial. He just says things.
Well, he's done some things.
What has he done that has been super controversial?
What was that? It's one of those music awards back in the day. Was it?
He threatened to fight Moby.
Like I said,
that's true.
Says things.
He wanted to sit next to Fred Durst.
Yeah.
But I'm saying.
But again,
what has he done?
Cole's right. Yeah, but he said stuff.
He said some very.
I mean, there are guys out there that
Suge Knight has done stuff.
Right.
That's true.
Eminem has said stuff.
Correct.
When it comes to the rap game, there are people that do it and there's people that say it, and he's on the say side.
He's on the say side.
Eminem wanted to fight with the Backstreet Boys verbally, but didn't actually. Yeah.
He ain't want that smoke.
Probably easily could have. I'm sure they were in the same place multiple times, but didn't get that to ever take place. And I'm not. That's not putting him down.
Is
or
Cole
anything.
calling Eminem fake tough guy?
Sounds like
no. He said he's controversial, and I said
verbally. Yeah. So
all he's done is say things like that's okay. So you ruffled some feathers. Like I don't feel like that's super controversial. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe if you just say things, then you're viewed as this polarizing human. Till I Collapse, probably going to be one.
Attaboy.
Okay.
Right in line with Georgia, Texas here. Let's go to next, probably The Way I Am. We'll probably go with that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's number 2 for me.
Then why would I say I am? In the paper, the news, every day I am.
Keep going. It sounds just like him.
The radio don't even play my jam.
All right, the Macklemore version. All right.
You mad?
What is the song with like the chainsaw in the background? God, I can't remember.
Chainsaw.
It's a good one.
Which one?
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, goodness.
John, do you know what I'm talking about?
3 a.m.
That doesn't sound correct. No.
Stan.
I've never been like memorized the names of songs.
All right, Greg.
Your big album
Stan's
guy.
a good one though.
Yeah, it is.
Stan is good.
Number 3, we'll throw in a little bit of. Boy, I haven't made anything recently that's going to be close to this list.
No.
Sorry about that.
His best was.
You don't like the.
Can we do
deep tracks?
Do collaborations count?
I would hope
I
so. 'Cause
guess
my number 1, without a doubt, is Forgot About Dre.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
He does sing the hook in that.
I'll go.
And his verse might be the best, like, +1 verse ever.
Well, his verse on the one that they used for the Sprite commercial is the best verse ever.
Ooh,
Oh,
damn.
forever?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that one count?
I'll count it.
Okay, we'll put that in there for 3.
Say no more. John?
I like that Damien knew that song by me saying it was used on a Sprite
Oh,
commercial.
correct. Right. Yeah.
And LeBron James.
Well, it gave him confidence, though, didn't it? Isn't that the
What
antidote?
does LeBron James have to do with it?
More Than a Game. That was the song for the soundtrack. For the movie.
What movie?
More Than a Game.
What is that?
His high school career leading him to the NBA.
That was a movie?
Yes.
Like in the movie theater?
Yes.
I'm Kevin Nealon. That's news to me. Oof, no clue.
Have not seen the tape on the LeBron James high school basketball
It was like 08, 09.
movie.
Yeah, no, it's dope, man.
No, pass. Number 1, again, Forgot About Dre. Like his verse in there. Yes, he sings a hook, but the verse in there, the rhyme scheme in that might be some of the most technically best rapping I've ever seen. Number 2, The Way I Am. But number 3, Not Afraid.
Not Afraid got overplayed.
I'm not afraid.
It's a great track.
It is, but it's just
Tell me what song of his didn't get overplayed.
White America?
No,
Tell me what hit of his did not get overplayed.
I wasn't ready for that one. I was not. No, number 3 for me, Cinderella Man. Number 2 for me, Lose Yourself. And number 1,
Cinderella
Superman.
Man.
Okay. Lose Yourself wasn't overplayed, but
just
Not Afraid was. Okay. All right.
Cinderella
Okay.
Man.
Superman number 1.
Mhm.
That was vicious.
Honestly,
Give me
that
Superman
might be
real
the
quick.
most
How's it?
that might
Remind
be
me how
the
it
most
goes.
accurate thing said on the show today is how overplayed all these songs have been.
Shows you how good he is.
Yeah, tell him not to be good.
Yeah, right. Like, tell him to miss.
It's like saying Alabama's overplayed on ESPN. Or
We're on ABC now.
That's
All right, relax.
But
But he's got a lot of good songs that were not overplayed. Like they're just not going to be radio safe. So
Right.
you're
That's
not
the
gonna
problem.
be
like
able to hear
Superman.
them.
They can only play so many songs of his. That's why they had to play with what they got.
Or it basically just becomes an instrumental. But yeah, he's I think some people are sending in some B-sides I've never really heard of. Anybody heard of One Shot?
I have not. I mean, I may have heard it. Like I said, I'm not great with the names.
Yeah.
So
A lot of Stan.
it's a really good song.
It is.
Yes.
It's just different.
Also
Right.
saying a lot about some mindsets.
Yeah. Clean out my
What are
closet.
you trying to say, John?
Oh, that's me. Clean Out My Closet's a good one.
That people
Clean Out My
listening
Closet's
are
good.
sickos. That's what I'm trying to say.
Renegade with Jay-Z, really good.
Ooh. You want to talk about bringing the best out of No Love, him and Lil Wayne? Shh. Them brothers don't miss.
He's had some smash hits. There's no doubt about
Like
that.
mega. Love the Way You Lie. I completely forgot.
Rihanna?
You want to talk about how he drops in? That's a good
Hey,
one.
I can't tell you what
I
it really
can't
is.
tell you what it really is.
I can only tell you what
I
it
can
feels
only
like.
tell you what it feels like.
I feel like we need a Greg Reed's rap segment in the off season.
There'd be a lot of ching.
Honestly, the problem is like, I feel like I'm not good at like bleeping things out. So
There's a
probably
delay.
gonna avoid
John
that
can handle
segment.
Yeah, we
that.
got Dump Button.
We give you the lyrics. We give you the clean lyrics. That'd be easy.
Heck, we could pre-record it and John can throw the censorship in there. Talk Texas with Amar Richardson next. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8 a.m. Thursday, October 17th. Jocks 94.5. I told you I'm not good with the names. I'm not sure which one comes out. Probably maybe Forever comes out. Square Dance goes in.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Don't remember names, like I said. Had to familiarize myself during the break. But if you want to get a good cardio session, find a way to get mad at some things. That's a good one to get going with.
Locks
right
you
there.
in.
If that's what you need to get a good workout, then that's a good one for you, and it's a good one for me. So, all right, Georgia, Texas has been a big part of the conversation. We're going to continue that. Anwar Richardson joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline, covers the Texas Longhorns. Anwar, this feels like a team that is about as healthy as you'd want them in a game like this. What are the real concerns for Texas heading into this matchup?
Well, good morning to you, both of you guys. I mean, I think one of the concerns is that this is probably the toughest team that Texas has faced all year long. Yeah, and so, the question is, and if your concern from the Texas side is, you want to make sure that what Texas has achieved so far hasn't been fool's gold. Texas has the victories, and they have, 2 victories against 2 top 25 teams, Michigan and Oklahoma. But I think in hindsight, we would say we don't know how good either one of those teams really are. This will be their first real test. This will be a first test that they've actually faced a real quarterback. They haven't really faced what I would consider a real quarterback, especially one who's a passing threat. They haven't really faced that this season. And so, yes, Texas has done well. The numbers reflect well. They're the number 1 team in the country, but they haven't faced a team as good as Georgia. And I think this, to me, becomes their biggest test of the year. And so that's where if you're looking for like concerns or anything to that effect, it is how do they react against an elite competition, an elite team.
What have you seen from the secondary? Because that's my biggest question mark right now. I don't think they've been tested. I don't think they've seen a great quarterback. I don't think they've seen really great weapons, especially considering what Michigan's been working with and what Oklahoma's been working with. So is this secondary improved considering that was the weak link last year?
Well, they are improved. And so let's like that. Because I totally get what you're saying, and I just said kind of the same thing. Now, to be fair, you got to play one who's on your schedule. 2, at the end of the day, Texas is giving up less than 7 points a game through 6 games. The opponents are only averaging 6.3 points against them. So you still have to be good enough to dominate the way that they're dominating. There's not another team in the country who is dominating the way Texas is dominating. There are teams who are winning. Don't get me wrong. Oregon is winning, right? There's teams that are winning. But if you're saying week in and week out, what team is dominating other opponents, Texas is the only team that's dominating. So the secondary is better. They do have good components that are there. I know you said something about the injuries. They have lost Derek Williams, their safety, who's going to be out for the rest of the season. Steve Sarkisian announced that earlier this week. And he was kind of a key component. But they have a bunch of good guys in the secondary where they're going to be okay. So from a statistical standpoint, from a pass defense standpoint, they are one of the best teams in the country. That being said, Carson Beck is going to test them, though. Like you go back to, we'll know a little bit more because Carson Beck is not Michael Hawkins. He's not any of those guys from Michigan. They haven't faced anybody this good. So I will say I do believe they're better. How we'll measure that, though, I'll know a little bit more this weekend because, Carson Beck is Carson Beck, and they haven't faced anybody as good as him.
Anwar Richardson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking Texas, Georgia coming up this weekend. Defensively, we feel like we've kind of got that figured out. Offensively, it felt like going into this season, running back was going to be an issue. Now, is this a strength of this football team?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, they're good at the running back position, but I would also say they've fumbled and put the ball on the ground 3 times in the past 2 games. So I wouldn't go that far as that it's a strength. Now, they're good at the running back position. The one thing you can say for sure is that there's some depth there. They have a Trey Wisner who's been there, of course. They have Jaden Blue, and so they haven't skipped a huge beat. They haven't missed a whole lot. The one thing that Steve Sarkisian has been really good at doing is making sure he has depth at a lot of all the key positions, right? The running back position, to which you just named. They lose C.J. Baxter before the season. They lose one of the backups, Christian Clark, before the season as well. Both of those guys are out for the year. And then you have to throw in, okay, well, who's next? And then, of course, the running game is still, being productive. I mentioned, Derek Williams is going to be out. Look, they're at a point when you talk about depth as far as this team is concerned, they lose their starting quarterback with Quinn Ewers. And their thing is, I guess we got to throw in a Manning. I guess if all else fails, I guess we got to go on the bench and get one of those Manning kids to come in and throw for us, right? So they've done a great job of accumulating depth where a lot of teams have to make excuses when things go wrong. They've been able to accumulate that depth. And, of course, they've been able to, even from a receiver standpoint, using the transfer portal to obtain a guy like Isaiah Bond, a Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, these guys who come in. These are all first-year guys who are key contributors for Texas, both coming through the portal. They've got Ryan Wingoff, five-star freshman out of Missouri, who's doing really good things for them as well. So there's been a real good accumulation of talent, good development of talent as well, because when you look at that offensive line, that's one position that they don't go into the portal to attack because they've been very good at developing those guys. And this is arguably the best offensive line that's in the country. So so going full circle back to your running back conversation, they're really good at running back. I wouldn't say it's a strength, but I would say overall they've lost some key components, but Sark and his guys have been really good as far as accumulating, acquiring, and developing talent.
Are you, when you watch this team, I thought last year's team was an excellent football team, obviously, right? I mean, really, really good. Mm-hmm. Secondary was the one thing that was a challenge. But when you watch this team, are they noticeably better in your eyes than they were a year ago? Mm-hmm. Or is it still kind of to be determined? Because there were some takeover the game guys last year at defensive tackle and some other spots that aren't on this team, but collectively all together, this does feel like a better group. So how do you assess this year's team versus last year's team?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? And it's interesting because I feel like last year's team had more individual talent on that team. You look at an Xavier Worthy, he goes out, he runs the fastest 40 in the combine, right? Adonai Mitchell ends up getting drafted, right? Jordan Whittington, these are three receivers that get drafted. And you look at the defensive line, those tackle positions, right? Byron Murphy, he's a first-round pick. Savondre Sweat is doing really good things at Tennessee this season, right? And so they end up having a ton of guys, double-digit guys that get drafted. But interestingly enough, and it's not to say anything about those guys that they weren't team guys or team first guys, and nothing to that effect. But for whatever reason, this is a really solid team that they have together. Like from the defensive standpoint, like the defensive line, there aren't a ton of standout guys that you would say they're on the defensive line. Not like you saw last year. They've got Alfred Collins in the middle. They got Vernon Broughton in the middle as well. I don't look at those guys as day one picks, and I'm not even quite sure they're day two picks at this moment. But they work really well, and they have a bunch of defensive tackles that rotate in. Now, they've got a hellified linebacker by the name of Anthony Hill. Like, that guy's bona fide. And they've got another edge kid by the name of Colin Simmons, who's fantastic. He's a fantastic player, great rusher. But from a team standpoint, if you go back to this past week, Quinn Ewers comes back from the injury. He doesn't really look spectacular against Oklahoma. You didn't look at those numbers and say to yourself, man, like he just came and lit it up like the 49-0 game. But they played so well as a collective unit that at the end of the day, they end up dominating Oklahoma, and they didn't necessarily need their quarterback to be outstanding in that game. So that's why I say your point in your question is a really good one, because Texas maybe doesn't have all these high, like, just, oh my God, this guy is just amazing. But from a team standpoint, they are playing really well. They're really cohesive, and Sark is really able to call the things that he wants, and they've been really successful that way.
Emar Richardson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He covers the Texas Longhorns, giving us some insight there. Is there a guy you feel for the Texas offense that's most important in this game? Wingo kind of looks like he's coming on. Gunnar Helm's been super valuable. Outside of quarterback, who needs to have a big game? Whose game maybe going to be a little bit more important in this matchup for you?
I would look at Jahdae Barron from a defensive back position. Carson Beck he's an excellent quarterback, but he will give you opportunities to get interceptions. Like that we know that. And so, not to say Carson Beck's a bad one, but I think their ability to take advantage of those balls when they're thrown, I look at him as something from a collective unit. I look at the offensive line versus this Georgia defensive line. The Georgia defensive line isn't that Georgia defensive line a couple of years ago when you just said to yourself, like, oh my gosh, like they are just reeking with talent. Everybody there is a stud. But can they affect Quinn Ewers? Can they force him into bad throws? Can they make him uncomfortable in the pocket? Because if they give Quinn Ewers time with these fast receivers that they have, because Sark learned from Alabama, and you guys know this as well as anybody, when Sark was there, they had speed at the receiver position. And when Sark got there and said, oh, wait, this is what I can do as a play caller when I've got these kind of guys who can move. So Sark said, I don't need these 6'4", 225-pound guys. Give me that 6 foot, 170-pound guy, and I look what I can do and get those guys in space. And so if the defensive line can get the pressure on Quinn, then all of a sudden it's going to help this Georgia defense. But if Quinn can sit back there and have that time, and when they get these really, I'm talking fast receivers in space, I think that's going to be really problematic for them. So I look at those things kind of as some of my real key, matchups. And then, from a Texas perspective, defensively, and like I said, I mentioned the Jahdae Barron, Anthony Hill, who again is a stud linebacker. If you just memorize that name and start saying it now, you look like the smartest guy in the room in another 2 years, because he looks like a future first-round pick, but he's a very young player. I think if he has the impact from that position that I think he can have, I think he's an absolute key player in this as far as stopping the run and, of course, affecting the pass, because, again, they have ton of speed on the outside and the inside with those positions. So those are some of the guys, that I would look for. I may have named everything, but it's all said and done. I may have named every key battle or every key position. But those are some of the things that I think about.
Anwar, you like Texas to get this game?
I do. I like them in a close game. Georgia hasn't been to DKR and played a game here. I think the atmosphere has gotten a lot better. Now, I was in Tuscaloosa last year, right? That is by far the best college football environment I've been in. Just the best. No one compares to that. I'm sorry. But I think Texas would be very close to that. And so they're going to come into a hostile territory. They're going to come into a really loud environment. They're going to get tested. And I think it might end up being a high-scoring game, but I think this is one that Texas pulls out in the end. Georgia's got a lot more to lose than Texas does. But I'm going to give Texas the slight edge, because I do feel like the thing about Georgia that's really confusing about them is that this is a team that went out and beat Kentucky 13-12. This is a team that was in a life or death situation versus Mississippi State. So I think we would all agree is probably the worst team in the SEC. And they just, and of course they fell behind against Alabama. You give them credit for the comeback. But they just seem to have some weaknesses that other teams have been able to expose. And I think Sark and the company have probably been able to see that. So I'm going to give Texas the slight edge because they're at home. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, though. I think it's going to be an absolute hell of a game. But the last thing I'll say on that is Georgia cannot afford to lose because you have 2 losses and you start talking about playoff spots. That puts way too much pressure on them. Texas can afford to lose and still have a mulligan. This is a must-win game for Georgia, but I will give Texas the edge when it's all said and done.
There you go. Anwar, great stuff. Always appreciate the time. Look forward to catching up with you again soon. Enjoy that one this weekend.
All right, y'all. Take care.
Anwar Richardson. Find his work at orangebloods.com. On Twitter at Anwar Richardson. Covers the Longhorns. Does it very well. And appreciate him taking some time to join us today. We'll continue some of that conversation around that game. But when we come back, I want to go a little bit of Auburn, Missouri, before we get to the Rubik's Cubelic a little bit later this hour. We'll do that right after this. But first, G-Mac, we got to tell our listeners about Wayne's. We know the weather now feels like it's actually going to be cooled off. Yard heading into dormancy. Not going to have to worry about that mosquito protection anymore, but you do need to start thinking about your yard for the next time it turns warm. And Wayne's wants to get your yard ready now. Cannot wait until next spring. Go ahead and begin to get it treated to head into dormancy, the cold weather seasons, and then get that yard lush, green, weed-free, barefoot good for next spring. GMAC Wayne's can help you do that.
Yeah, they can. 866 Wayne's one's the number. Offer code JOCKS. You want to get that pre-emergent. You want to get those nutrients set before things get cold. So do it and do it quickly because it's getting cold faster than I think anybody could have anticipated. So go and check them out. 866 Wayne's one. Call Waynes.com. Use the offer code JOCKS. That's JOX, and let Wayne's continue to create your happy place.
All right, when we come back, a little bit of Auburn, Missouri. We hadn't taken much look at that game. Let's begin to discuss it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8:20, Thursday, October 17th. Watch live on YouTube, search Jocks945, and you can watch the show as we are in studio and check out how things operate here. Also, JocksFM.com. The app is in your app store. You can get podcasts, listen there, and watch there on the app. Search WJOX in your app store. Your CBD store, products that are going to help you get a better night's sleep. If you got some aches and pains, you or your pet, arthritis, they can help with that. They've helped multiple pets in my house with that. Skincare for you and your pets as well. We have a pet in our house right now. Every time fall gets going, the weather cools off, she gets some skin irritations. Your CBD store has some pet treats that can help with that. A lot of different things to make your life better, whether it's weight loss, the Trim by SunMed, in stock now at the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer on earth. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. Go check out one of their 4 locations. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustful just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points. Your CBD store where good health hits home. All right, Auburn and Missouri, a game that I would say flying under the radar a little bit heading into this weekend for a couple of reasons. One, you got a team that's still in the playoff hunt in Missouri. 2, an Auburn team that if you really begin to look ahead, if they were to drop this one, it could get really ugly. 11 a.m. ESPN. Auburn comes in 2-4, have not won an SEC game, 0-3 there. Missouri's 5-1, 1-1 in the league. I think the Auburn front has to have a good game, Greg. Now, Nate Noel, what his status is going to be, I think it's a big difference. I think Marcus Carroll can run the stretch, but Nate just glides when he does it, makes it look effortless. And you're going to get an offensive line that knows how to operate with it. It's what Texas A&M, I thought, took away first. I think it's second, third, fourth play of the game. You spike that thing right there off tackle, get in the backfield, and I think that set the tone early to say you're going to have to find another direction to go because we're not letting you run this. And if they can't, then I think they're in trouble because that's what they build everything else around off. So Keldrick Falk out there on the edge, if it's Jalen McLeod, you've got to find a way to turn back that play early on so Missouri can't get it going and then build everything else around that. Also think Auburn's got to make Brady Cook uncomfortable. I think we've all agreed that he has just not taken that step that we thought was possible, that he took the previous year, and he kind of seems a lot like the same guy that, he might get his eyes down a little bit early. He has a tendency to potentially drop the football, put the ball on the ground, make a bad decision, can be sporadic, not throwing it to the other team as much, but you can get to him. And I think that's what DJ Durkin's got to find a way to do. Slow down that stretch play early, and then find a way to affect Brady Cook.
Not throwing to the other team as much, not throwing to his own team as much either. There's been some missed throws, and that's, I think, something that needs to get cleaned up. When you're in year 3 of starting, you just can't have misses like that. And there have been some good throws, too. Like, if you look at last week, his first throw of the game against A&M that's a beautiful throw. Back shoulder, perfectly located. That's money. But we just don't see enough of that. So I'm hopeful that it's in there. I want that for Missouri, but I'm not optimistic. I think Auburn is just disruptive enough on the front to create some negative plays. And I think Auburn's probably not going to be too concerned about leaving some of those receivers on islands. I do think they play a kind of a bend-don't-break style, so I think they'll keep it in front of them, but I think they'll give up some free access in favor of trying to take away the run. And I think McLeod and company can get behind these tackles and drop them in the backfield and get them off schedule.
And when you go to Auburn offensively in this matchup, first off, there's so many directions that we could go, but let's just start with 27. And I think we would all be in agreement that he's got to touch the football. He's got to touch it often. We played the clip of Coach Freeze earlier in the week saying, we've got to coach it up better to where he can touch the ball more. Well, that's called calling the plays where he gets the ball more. It's not very difficult or confusing. 78 carries on the season, 528 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging 6.77 per carry. Greg, it's got to be Jarquez Hunter early and often in this game to be able to even add to or force Missouri to play you certain ways, in my opinion, and then allow some things to potentially open up down the field for Peyton Thorne in the passing game.
If you're Missouri, would you move?
No.
Up front? Like I would just
not
anchor
near
down.
not near as much. I mean, I'd throw something in every now and then, but I mean, yeah, no, I think I know where you're going specifically based off the A&M tape where it felt like it was every single play. It was egregious. I don't know another way to put it. It was too much.
But they had to against A&M because I think A&M's offensive line's pretty good, so they had to create a little disruption. It was too much in the A&M. I agree, but it was almost out of necessity. And then they get behind. It's like, we got to make a play. Let's force the issue. But as a result, I mean, it was a perfect storm in favor of them getting rocked. Against Auburn, I don't like Auburn's offensive line very much. I think the left side's not good. I don't know how else to describe it. So, and Tutal's been up and down on the right side when he's been in there. So I don't feel like I need to dictate. I think I can just kind of anchor down and
play straight up
and probably play pretty well and be more sound.
Yeah, and then that helps you with some of the misdirection that you feel like you're going to get. You should get. Auburn should have a little bit more of that in. I would try to lean a lot on Peyton Thorne's legs in this game. I mean, I think you've gotten to the point now where, protecting that asset shouldn't be as much of a concern. We've seen when that part of the game plan, whether it was Georgia 2 years ago, when that's been implemented and a little bit extra has been put on that, it helps open everything else up. And I still go back to becoming, just plain and simple, a run-first offense initially instead of some of the tags have just got to be removed. They have to. It's got to be call it and run it a little bit more. Because if you don't become a little bit stubborn with this, you're going to turn into what you've been in all these other games, Greg. You're just going to keep giving quarterbacks the option to throw it. Like, why would any defense, from an RPO standpoint, give you the look not to throw it? I wouldn't. I'd give you all the looks to hand it off because I don't think you're going to do it. I just don't think you can sit there and hand the ball off 40 times in a game. So some of that's got to be taken away, and the coaches are the ones that can do that. And they've got to emphasize it, and they've got to go out and do it.
And it's not really on Peyton Thorne. Like, this is an offense designed, and people continue to point to, well, the Jarquez averages, X yards per carry. That's because when he runs it, it's against optimal looks. This offense is all about creating optimal looks and getting into the optimal play for how the defense wants to respond with their first or second step. And I think there's a place for it for sure, but I also think in defensive-minded football nowadays, they've gotten really good at creating gray area. They've gotten really good at creating indecision at quarterback. And guess what's easier to do? Throw it. It's easier to throw the ball because in the event in which a safety crashes and takes out the run, that's hard. It's hard to run the football. If everybody everyone's like, run the ball. Well, I mean, running the ball is hard. You have to have everybody working together. Guess what throwing the ball requires? An accurate throw and a receiver that beats one defensive back. So I think that the RPO system itself is a little tired. I think the identity is a little tired as well. So I do think call it and run it. And we've seen more of these start to come up. Don't get me wrong, Lane Kiffin uses RPO like crazy. But I don't see a Trey Harris on Auburn's football team. And I don't see a Jackson Dart either. So until I know for sure that your receiver can win on back shoulders, fades, and hitches all day long, I don't love it. I also don't think Auburn plays with that kind of tempo where you have a defense on their heels the whole time. So I think that it's just RPOs are good. They're helpful, but they're not an identity anymore. So I'm hopeful that here a week now has gone by where they can really assess and say, all right, let's use RPO, but let's not live and die by RPO. And that will be a nice step in the right direction.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. And we'll see if some of that can take place. I don't know if there's been a lot of talk about doing a lot of things this year, and then those things don't seem to happen. So I'm also interested in DJ's plan in this game because we've seen him. One thing that we like about this group is the versatility. He's played different guys on the ball, off the ball. He's played 4 down. He's played 3 down. He's played some odd. He's been pressure heavy. He hasn't pressured quite as much. He's done a really nice job, I think, altering his plan for what I think he believes he's got to affect or impact or try and take away first. I think it's got to be the run. So do you play a little bit heavier? Is this a Jalen McLeod Kieran Crawford off the ball game where you're a little bit thicker at linebacker, and maybe you go play some 4 down with the heavier D lineman, heavier ends. I don't really know where he's going to go, but I'm interested to see it. Or maybe you say, okay, if they're going to lean on the stretch as much, we want to have more flow at the second level to be able to try and take that away, which is kind of a dangerous thought. But if you feel like your run fits better out of that scheme, maybe that's the way you play it a little bit more. Like maybe, is he going to play downhill with the linebackers like Austin Keys as much as he has? I'm just interested to see.
Austin Keys game to me. I mean, I think he'll play a decent amount, but like to me, this is a McLeod game. This is a playmaker game. So I like McLeod off the ball in this game for sure. The other thing I'm curious about, like, the more I watch this Auburn defense, the more I have respect for him and the more I have respect for what DJ's doing, because I think on that team, like God's honest truth, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think there's one pro. Like literally one.
On the entire team? Or
No, on the defense. On the defense. And that to me is pretty freaking amazing. Now, there's a lot of really good college players, but I don't think there's a lot of pros on that team. You tell me,
if you're
is
talking
there
like,
more?
Like bona fide NFL long-term starter? Yeah.
No, I'm talking like a guy that's going to have a solid NFL career, like a real pro. I got one.
I think there's a couple that could morph into that if they got in the right place, but there's one that I look at and say, no matter what, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so same page, basically. Like the rest are circumstantial. Doesn't mean they're not good players. It just means it's circumstantial likelihood of them being a professional. There's one that 100% will play on Sundays, and I feel pretty good about it. His name's Kendrick Falk. Like that guy's a Sunday player. The rest, I don't know. Eugene Asante, a little undersized. Jalen McLeod, very undersized. They don't have great length at corner. They don't have great cover ability in the back end. Like they have a bunch of really good college football players. But they really only have one bona fide pro, and that's Kendrick Falk. So, in my opinion, do you feel like I'm missing somebody here?
You're not way off, but he hasn't played as well this year. I think Keontae Scott will be on an NFL roster for a long time. I don't think he's super impact, Pro Bowl multiple time, but I think he'll be on a roster for a while. He's got good versatility. He'll hit. I don't think he's a liability in coverage, and I think he can help you in special teams. But if you're talking about a guy that drafts, comes in, starts, plays for a long time, then it's hard to see a lot of other guys who fit that void.
I think he's solid. Don't get me wrong. Very solid player.
16 may turn into that. We just haven't seen enough of him. But
yeah, well, it's too early for that one. I don't know yet. I mean, we'll see. I'm a pretty big. I really like DeMarcus Riddick. I think he's going to be a good player. I still think though the best pro prospect on this defense by a fairly decent sized margin is Kendrick Falk.
Yeah.
So,
no
and that to me just goes to show you that DJ Durkin is coaching his tail off, and he's got a lot of really good players that are position versatility. But this to me is a star game. And when I look at this game, like you're going to need Jalen McLeod, who, by the way, is not maybe an NFL prospect. Maybe he's a beast on special teams, and he might very well develop into that and turn into becoming a great NFL player as well by playing 10 years as a kickoff guy, in the league. But he's going to have to ball out, and they're going to have to make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. Like this is about negative plays created. And I think if they can get them behind the sticks a little bit, they should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's. I would agree with a lot of that, no doubt. And you've got to find some of those, because if this is an offense, if they get some momentum and they get going, and they're able to build on some of the things that are working, and then he keeps adding to it, and then it's jet motion, it's split with the jet motion, and then it's bootleg off that, play action RPO off that. It's just it becomes a lot. Oh, now quarterback is going to read it and keep it. It becomes just, and then your head starts spinning. You're thinking, you're looking both ways, and then you're in trouble, because then they hit the regular stretch play again, and you don't have enough pursuit to even cut it off. So we'll see how that one looks. We got more time to talk about it over the next 2 days. Going to go to a breakdown. On the other side, we will get you this week's version of the Rubik's Cubelic. Don't worry about the record. Just worry about the fact that more data has been compiled to be able to give you an accurate assessment of what's going to happen in some massive matchups this weekend. But first, if you're lacking energy, getting poor sleep, feel on edge, could be the effects of low testosterone, Game Day Men's Health wants to help you today. You just go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, set up a free consultation that includes a free testosterone test, a free PSA test. They're going to give you a free consultation right there. No charge, and you get the results of those two tests to find out a baseline perspective of where your health is, and they're going to try to help you feel better. Low stress environment, locker room feel, great people, not going to try to push you in anything that you don't want to do. Mention Cube, by the way, and save 10% on any service that they offer. Multiple weight loss programs in-house right there at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, set up that free no-charge consultation today. Keep in mind, minimal upfront cost for all the programs that Game Day Men's Health offers. So book that free consultation today and go check out GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Why would you not do it? Just get a baseline of where you are. Try to feel better, get better sleep, have more energy, less brain fog. You can do all that and more at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. All right, when we come back, it's the Rubik's Cubelic next. Mac and Cube in the morning.
Welcome back to McElroy Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5, 8:40 a.m. Birmingham's where Cole's at. I'm actually sitting in my car in Tuscaloosa preparing to go to practice here in about an hour and 25 minutes. So very much look forward to watching the Tide firsthand today, connecting with Kalen, Kane, and Nick Sheridan as well, the DC and OC respectively. Tell you what, the car I'm sitting in, though, is beautiful, and it's thanks to my friends at Bill Smith Buick GMC. They just take such great care of us. And me and my wife, we both have purchased vehicles. We have another one on order right now from Bill Smith Buick GMC. It's been a great experience every single time I've shopped with Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager. I know you guys will have the exact same feeling, and there's a reason why they're the GMC Dealer of the Year. They're the largest GMC dealership and the largest discounts. They also have the best service. Thank you to all the Alabamians that have helped make them number one again. They also have that used car supercenter as well, but anywhere you can go and get nearly $14,000 off the MSRP on a brand new GMC Sierra, and you can get one of those GMC Sierras for under $55,000 with the SLT trim. This thing's beautiful. That's a deal that'll keep you coming back. That's why 75% of their business repeat customers, because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. So take a short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. Up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31, or you can shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, we bring it to you each and every week. The scientists in North Alabama, botanists, geologists, hard at work to give you these numbers and let you know how games are going to play out. Let's roll right into it. A game that we were just talking about, one in the SEC, one that is important for a lot of different reasons. Auburn is at Missouri. John, plug it in.
Major input. Input. Woo! All done.
If you are new to the show, say listening on Sports Radio 740 in Montgomery or just stumbled across us on YouTube, this is a mathematical equation that we put together with help from our friends at NASA in North Alabama to give you winners of football games. It's that easy. And the receipts have been printed out. Games in Columbia, Missouri, that's advantage Missouri Tigers. 188 on the ground for Mizzou, 166 for Auburn. Mizzou allows 116 on the ground. Auburn allows 124. Missouri's +5 in the turnovers. Auburn's -11.
Ow!
That would be
wow.
I don't know, that's more than a double up, but it is massive.
It's up for Missouri. 38 flags, 318 yards for Mizzou. Auburn has 2 fewer flags, but a few more penalty yards, 36 for 325, so no advantage there. 51% on third down for Missouri, 42 for Auburn. You feel a theme happening here?
Yeah.
A little bit.
29% third down conversions allowed by the Missouri defense, 38 for Auburn. By a margin of, let me read this again.
Yeah, make sure.
+30.
A margin of +5, the Rubik's Cubelic likes Missouri.
Give me Auburn.
Just saying that.
Greg hates
Oh,
computers.
he's just fading it. Okay.
God almighty.
Not fading it. I just think Auburn's going to win.
Barner Greg shows up
Probably
again.
shouldn't, but I do.
All right, we can't go all SEC games. There is an important game that has playoff implications in the Big Ten this weekend. Nebraska's at Indiana. John, plug it in.
Rubik's Cubelic.
Rubik's
Cubelic. Rubik's Cubelic.
Games in Bloomington. Advantage Hoosiers. They run for 200 yards per game.
Wow.
Okay.
200 Indiana runs for it. Would you like to
Triple
poke
digits.
some holes in that one, Greg?
Against who?
I kind of figured it was coming. So,
Merlin?
137
The
a
Wizard?
game on the ground for Nebraska. Both teams allow around 84 yards per game on the ground, so no advantage there. Indiana, 4th in the Big Ten in rush offense, 2nd in rush defense, +6 in the turnovers for the Cornhuskers, +3 for Indiana, so advantage Nebraska there. 35 flags, 325 yards for the Hoosiers, 47 for 407 for Nebraska, advantage Hoosiers. Indiana converts 54% on third down.
That's pretty good.
It's the best in the Big Ten if you're keeping up at home. It's also 7th in the nation. Not bad. 44% for Nebraska, which is also not terrible, but it's not first in the Big Ten like Nebraska is. Indiana allows 32% of their third downs to be converted defensively, 35% for Nebraska. No real offset there, maybe a slight edge to Indiana. And by a margin of +3, the Rubik's Cube looked like Indiana to knock off Nebraska. Greg.
Man.
Against who? Against who?
Greg.
Against who?
Listen, I just
Can
give
we
you
get some
the.
close matchups? What's going on?
It's I just read the receipt. That's all I do. I can't
Against who?
tell you anything else. All right, let's plug in Alabama at Tennessee. This one should be fun.
Major input. Input. Woo! All done.
We know where the game is. Knoxville, advantage, Vols. 246 rushing yards per game for Tennessee. That is first in the SEC. That is seventh in college football. 179 a game on the ground for Alabama. That's advantage, Vols. Alabama's allowing 129 rushing yards per game. Does anybody want to take a guess on where that is in the Southeastern Conference rankings?
That would be 13th.
No.
It's last because if you're not first, you're last.
No,
I'm going to say 9th.
It's 14th in the SEC.
I'm close.
You were close. So it's 55th nationally, Alabama's rush defense.
Guess who? They ain't run the ball.
Tennessee allows 80 rushing yards per game, 5th nationally. Advantage Vols. +3 for Alabama. The turnovers +2 for Tennessee. No real offset there.
That sounds like a +1 offset, but it's fine if you want to barn it up. To me, that sounds like a +1 offset. But what do I know?
Barn it up.
Oh, he's going to barn it on Mr. taking Auburn over Missouri. Okay.
I mean, we've been doing this for a couple years now, and there's no need to go into it any further. Tennessee, 44 flags, 365 yards, 47 for Alabama. However, 433 yards.
Sweet Jesus. That's a lot.
Alabama's 15th in the SEC in penalty yardage per game. 15th. Advantage Vols.
Oh, boy.
Now, Alabama does convert on 46% of their third downs, but Tennessee converts on 45% of their third downs. So that's a massive advantage for Bama, right, Greg?
+1.
But Bama.
+1.
Massive advantage there for Bama. Okay. Well, if that's a +1, what would the third down defense be where Alabama allows opponents to convert 31% of theirs, yet Tennessee allows opponents to convert 24% of theirs? First in the SEC, by the way.
Third down, honestly, has never really mattered.
For what?
Because if you're really good on offense, you never get to third down. That's the way I look at it.
It's totally fair.
4 seed of downs.
Why would anybody care that Tennessee has the second best third down defense in all of college football?
Guess who?
Anybody want to take advantage? Guess who has number 1 third down defense in college football?
Vanderbilt.
Probably
No. Probably the number 1 third down offense.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll say Ole Miss.
No.
Auburn.
Northern Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
NIU, baby.
Vanderbilt 10th in third down efficiency at 51.25% on the year.
Pretty good.
That would be advantage Vols.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And by a margin of +2, the Rubik's Cube likes Tennessee to defeat Alabama.
Wow. Should have played Rocky Top then.
You're probably wondering when we're going to get to Georgia and Texas. We will do that next on the Rubik's Cube right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 8:52 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5 in the middle of the Rubik's Cubelic. But if you need to get a new home, Damian, who should you call?
They should give my buddy Ben Hedden a call from the Beham Realty. If you think about selling your home and when it comes to selling, you only want excellence, you need to give my buddy Ben a call, 205-568-2705, or go to BehamRealtyCo.com. If you're struggling to get your house sold because the markets are changing every single day, you need an expert that focuses on adapting at half the time to make sure you and your squad come out on top. That's Ben Hedden of the Beham Realty Group. You can visit their website at BehamRealtyCo.com or give them a phone call at 205-568-2705.
All right, Rubik's Cubelic, 4-5 on the season. This is our computer program to pick college football winners. Greg, are you on the other side of every game? Well, you can't pick Alabama, Tennessee, but do you like Nebraska or Indiana this week? Good. All right, let's run it for Georgia at Texas. Say, Bear.
Rubik's Cubelic.
Rubik's
Cubelic. Rubik's Cubelic.
Rubik's Cubelic.
Keep it going. Remix. Obviously, game in Austin, advantage Horns. 189 a game on the ground, 134 for Georgia, advantage Horns. Georgia allows 120 yards per game defensively. Texas 104, advantage Horns. Georgia -1 in the turnovers. Texas +3, advantage Horns.
Oh, boy.
43 flags for 429 yards. 37 for 306 for Texas, advantage Horns.
Oh, God.
39% converted on third down offensively for Georgia. That's 13th in the SEC. 50% for Texas, advantage Horns. 33% allowed it to be converted defensively for Georgia. On defense, 28 for Texas, advantage Horns.
Georgia might not even they don't need to get off the plane.
Don't show up.
Oh, boy.
By margin of +6, the Rubik's Cube looks like
What?
Texas to beat Georgia.
What?
Has there ever been a +6 before?
Not much.
Oh, my God.
Not in a game of this magnitude.
So Greg's taking Georgia. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Give me Georgia.
We know where he's going. +6?
Damien, I read the receipt, man. It's right here. We print it out. They print it. I read it. You can go talk to the co-pilots up there at NASA.
Man, I'm going to have to pull them to the side, big dog. That's thick. +6? I mean,
You call the
Georgia-
ophthalmologist and have a conversation with him.
Man.
Well, the ophthalmologist might actually be worth calling in this situation because my eyes are telling me a different story.
I like that.
You like Georgia by 20?
No, I like Georgia in desperation mode to go to Austin and light up a secondary that's relatively unchallenged. I like Nebraska, who actually plays defense and has actually faced an explosive offense this year like Colorado, to be able to tee off on Curtis Rourke and keep the run stymied and to apply some pressure. I like Auburn to create enough negative plays, and I think there's going to be a scenario or two where Brady Cook throws it to Auburn, and then finally, I mean, I think in the last game, Bama-Tennessee is going to be an incredible matchup. Can't wait for it. And I think that thing could go down to the wire in either direction.
So he's fading the Rube Cube all week.
Aye.
Listen, I didn't come up with these numbers.
The old science versus tape.
That's
Head versus heart.
sometimes that's what it comes down to.
I want to know where you fall on some of these now.
I like Texas to win. I like Missouri to win. I think Nebraska, Indiana could go either way. Nebraska, only team not to allow a rushing touchdown this season, so I agree with you defensively on what's happening there. And Alabama, Tennessee, I think could go either way. I'm undecided on that one. We'll ask Wimp Sanderson, though. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9 a.m. Hour number 3 underway right here on Jocks 94.5. JocksFM.com. App is in your app store. Search WJOX. If you're listening down in Montgomery, Sports Radio 740, we appreciate that. If you're listening up north, which it sounds like Greg's probably mad at some folks up there, in the Rocket City on Talk Radio 730, 103.9 FM, The Ump, we appreciate that as well. Watching on YouTube, search Jocks945. Appreciate you there.
The stats are the stats. You don't have to. I'm not mad at anybody up there. We can just respectfully disagree. That's all it is.
It sounded like you were a little on edge with it, so
No.
it's okay. It's all right.
Hardly that.
I will let them know that you disapprove of everything that they have put together for us this week. They said they're going to try to do better next week. He does great every week. He visits with us at this time. Thanks to our friends at Coke and Piggly Wiggly. It's the coach, Wimp Sanderson. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Okay. Last week I hit BYU, so that was good.
It was great.
And so I'm let you know what I'm going to do this week, and it's a hard pick, so we'll talk about that at the end. It's not interesting to you two guys, but it might be interesting to some of our listeners. Alabama-Tennessee games have gone on the third Saturday in October for a long time. They've gone through stretches. Alabama has won 9, I think, 10 or 11 in a row. And by the way, Tennessee has won, I think, 9 or 10. Somebody's going to call it in and correct me. Tennessee has won 9 or 10 at one point in time in a row. Coach Bryant, when I was at Alabama, was at Kentucky. Before he left Kentucky, he had a hard time beating Bob Nalen, and Tennessee couldn't beat him. Very seldom he beat him. So he went to Texas A&M, left and went to Texas A&M, and then from Texas A&M came to Alabama. So there's been a big history there of Alabama and Tennessee, and back when my day with Coach Bryant there, he had a hard time in Kentucky. I wasn't with him. They said he left Kentucky because of basketball being good, but it was not true. It was more so about the other. So going to be an interesting game, I think.
What does that rivalry mean to you, Coach? When you think about Alabama, Tennessee, what comes to mind?
Well, it's of course a big rivalry. It's one that and a lot of great players have played in. The basketball coach Rick Barnes at Tennessee worked for me for a year. He didn't have a job at the time, and I hired him and stayed with me for a year, and then moved on. I've got a lot of friends in the state of Tennessee, but I think it's a great rivalry. We've had some Philip Fulmer problems you guys don't know about on a recruiting situation that Alabama was turned in by Philip Fulmer or a kid they were trying to get. The laughing part about the kid couldn't play to start with, so it was the biggest mess I've ever seen. I can't get into that, but it means a great deal to the state of Alabama. It means a great deal to Alabama people, and it's a great rivalry.
What do you have a story from the rivalry that you've experienced, Coach?
Well, I can't really think of one. All the time I try to think of something it's after I hang up. I thought I was interested in listening to you the other day, and this doesn't go quite with what you're talking about. When you were talking about penalties and laying down, and not being injured, but trying to slow the process of the game up. I don't know if your listeners are, I'm probably going a different direction, but I wondered, when a guy came on the field for the Oregon, which was pretty smart, they changed that rule yesterday, and I know the rules guy pretty well. They changed that rule, and he did it in order to run 4 or 5 seconds off the clock, and they got that rule changed somewhat. But I thought it was so interesting to our listeners when you can't tape or look at somebody laying down, and you know that somebody's pointed to somebody to lay down. Very difficult to distinguish between laying down and being hurt.
You're asking if you were trying to designate if someone's just faking it or not faking it when they're on the ground?
Yeah.
I mean, that was
I
part
wonder
of the
what
conversation, Coach. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's where you might get in some trouble. Is you're going to designate it as, hey, you faked that injury, and then they can come back and prove that he had a hip pointer or dislocated hip or turf toe. I don't know. I mean, I just said there's a lot of it that is in a gray area, but I think Greg's common sense approach also makes sense where you can see somebody run 20 yards down the field after a big play and they're trying to go fast, looks over. I mean, Greg will tell you he knows certain team signs to be able to do it. And so all of a sudden they get that signal and then they go down. I mean, you had a quarterback point to his running back to go down. I mean, so some of it's blatantly obvious, but I do think that there's a potential to get in trouble there if you try to just say, okay, we think this is what happened.
Well, I think switching back, I think does the loser of the Alabama-Tennessee game still have a shot for the 12? And I don't know, y'all. I'm sure y'all have already talked about all this. And Georgia having a tough schedule as far as Ole Miss and Tennessee after Texas is a confused. I don't think a team with 3 losses gets in, regardless of who they are. I'm sure y'all have already talked about that, so I'm kind of in the way saying anything about it. But is that your feeling that a 3-loss team, regardless of who they are, won't get in?
I'm not ready to say that just yet, Greg. I don't know about you because there's just so many unknowns here, Coach. We don't know what's going to happen. We could have mass chaos down the stretch.
I'm not going to say that. What I do know is that the surprise undefeateds are a problem for potential 3-loss teams. And another thing that you got to factor in are upsets potentially in the conference championship games that could further thrust, teams out. And we've seen it in basketball for a long time. In a one bid or in a league with one bid, traditionally you have Gonzaga. Well, they lose to San Francisco in the championship. Well, Gonzaga's still in because of their non-conference, and San Francisco just stole a spot in the tournament. So we could see the same thing happening in college football in the event in which we have conference championship upsets. But I think it's the people that are going to screw this up potentially for the 3-loss teams are Pitt, who's undefeated, Indiana, who's currently undefeated, Miami right now, who is currently undefeated. I mean, you have some teams that are surprises that could become a bit of a challenge moving forward because those teams might end up being there even though they're really probably on paper not as good as some of the 3-loss teams like Georgia that played a ridiculous schedule.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat confusing. I don't know. I have no answer to it, but this should be a very, very big weekend, no doubt about that.
All right, let's get to some of them and where you're going, Coach, when you look at some of these massive matchups.
I want it. You say if you wanted to, you should have done it. I felt like I needed to take BYU again, 9.5 points, and and I know the head coach at Oklahoma State got hit in the eye with a cow or something, and is not going to be whatever. I just for some reason I thought the line was too good. I know that sounds stupid. So I took Army. I took a Naval Academy team that I felt like was going to play East Carolina, who I don't think is very good at all. And the line is real high, like 15 or 16 points.
16 points, Coach, is a lot.
Yeah.
They got Notre Dame next week, Coach.
Yeah, I know. But I went ahead and stuck with them, with the Army, and I could be wrong. I think BYU's probably people that listen to the show say, well, if you thought BYU was so darn good, why didn't you pick them? I thought it was too good. So I have no idea whether it's right or wrong, but I ended up picking the blue plate, the Army game versus East Carolina.
All right, there you go. What are you feeling about that Alabama-Tennessee game that we mentioned a few minutes ago?
I think Alabama's got a great chance to win. I think the Tennessee quarterback is overpaid, but he's pretty darn good. He's up and down. I think it depends on one thing. I think it depends on the abilities of Alabama's defense to get to him on both sides of the ball. McElroy as well. But I think if they get to him, Alabama wins.
Okay. What about Georgia at Texas?
Oh, Texas wins. Texas wins.
Greg says no chance Texas can win this game.
Oh, Texas wins.
Okay. How about
Zero chance, Coach. Zero chance. There's no chance the number one team and most complete team in college football can win this game. There's no chance.
what about Auburn at Missouri, Coach? It's a weird one. Auburn pretty much has to have it.
Yeah, I think Missouri's defense is too good. I think Missouri's defense wins it for them over Auburn. That's what I think. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what I think. So you got enough to bring people at the head man. So you got to get out about it.
We love the time, and we know each and
every. When you leave there, they'll have the products for you, whether it be meat or whether it be vegetables, whatever it might be. And Piggly Wiggly is the place for you to go and check out. Hope you'll go by there and tell them you heard it on our show. And Coca-Cola has always been the drink of not only the past, but the future and the present. So Coke is absolutely terrific. So hopefully you'll go by there and tell them that you heard it on our show. And I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach.
All right.
That's the coach, Wimp Sanderson, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. For all your insurance, financial, HR needs, it's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. Some of you may have been wondering what Coach was referencing with Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State head coach. Earlier in the week, he let everybody know he had a little run-in the bye week.
Well, I had a little run-in with my cattle over the weekend, and I guess they've been watching us play and got headbutted. So I've got a bad eye that I didn't think would be particularly enjoyable for people when they were looking at my pretty face in a live interview. But more importantly, it's full of blood and I get dizzy, and so it's not easy to be upright and be in a normal function. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Does he hit protocol? I would think so, wouldn't he? I mean,
feels like we need a protocol visit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't. Is he on the injury availability report?
Doesn't need to be.
Doesn't. Okay. Also, Coach Sanderson brought up that 12-man penalty for Oregon over the weekend. Dan Lanning addressed that.
Much of the commentary world has decided and struck you as a genius, Stan, for the 12-man penalty and declared that it was intentional. Was it indeed intentional to induce the throw one-on-one against Jabbar in that spot?
It wasn't one-on-one. We actually had a safety on top. So there was so it's called dog. It's when you play, but he wasn't in extremely tight coverage, but he was in dog coverage where he had safety on top of him. And there was a timeout before that. We spent an inordinate amount of time on situations. There's some situations that don't show up very often in college football, but this is one that obviously was something that we had worked on. So you could see the result.
Damian, John, were you guys watching when this happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just take us through it, because Greg and I didn't see it this way. We didn't.
It didn't feel like something. It felt almost like an accident. But then when you realize what happened, that we had 12 men. Oh well, the clock can't go back. It didn't dawn until like later, because the final play happened so much. You didn't really think about it once you got online later and started like thinking about the last drive and everything. It was like, oh wait, like he might have done that on purpose.
Right.
And then seems to be the case.
Yeah, I just looked at it as like, oh, they got 12 men out, and Ryan Day was running down the sideline. Hey, they got 12. They got 12. And I was like, oh, okay. And then after the fact, everybody's like, oh, Dan Lanning like playing this. Is like,
because
okay, it's pretty good.
by the
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like the 12th man was like helping in coverage. Like,
right.
I mean, it's one thing if you have 12 men on, that's fine. But like, if I'm gonna have 12 men on the field, I can tell you what I'm gonna do. Is that cat's gonna be blitzing the O line right off the sideline? Like, I mean, I would have run him right off the sideline and just have him go and take out a tackle or something. Like, I mean, I don't know. This to me, I think he's getting a lot of credit for being a genius, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on it.
You don't know if he did it on purpose, you're saying?
Correct.
Huh, okay.
Do you?
I don't, yeah, I kind of didn't feel like he really answered the question. Like everybody's giving him credit for saying there, yes, it was intentional, but I mean, he's kind of goes into coverage and the whole thing. It's just,
Yeah.
just if you want credit for it, just say, yeah, we ran him on there for this because we knew this would happen. So
thought about that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced of that. I also feel like had Billy Napier done it, the narrative would be like, "Oh, see, this guy can't manage the clock.
More
This guy can't
operational
manage the
errors."
situation." Yeah, like, but because Dan Lanning does it, it's like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest
reinvented
move
football.
from a strategy standpoint ever." It's like, dude, if they score a touchdown on that play, it doesn't really make a difference. Like, what if you would have intercepted the pass? Huh? Like, what if you would have intercepted the pass and, okay, great. Well, the 4 seconds went off. Awesome. But guess what? They now get a new down. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I buy it, but I'm all for, like, creating advantages like this. Like, I think it's fun and thoughtful and interesting, but I don't know if I buy it.
Okay, so now on top of that, the NCAA has altered the rule. If a defense has more than 11 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of the half, the game clock would be reset. Essentially, that's all you need to know. So it is wild how the NCAA can operate in such a swift manner with certain things, yet other things seem to be lost for years. Don't really understand some of that.
Also, I thought the NCAA could only act on a player safety thing. Like, I didn't know that was player safety related, but I respect it.
Of course, it's 12 against 11.
If I got extra guys coming at me,
Yeah,
it might be
that's
that might be player safety. Going over the middle of the field, and all of a sudden, where does this guy come from? Bam! Pow! Not good.
Not what you want.
What is good is the pants store, Greg.
That's right. Pants Store is your game day headquarters for all the best gear. It's starting to cool off a little bit. It's layer season. So it's time to go get some layers, get some quarter zips, get a hat, get a pullover, whatever it may be, maybe even a hoodie. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever you're feeling. All the best brands like Horn Legend, Cutter and Buck, Antigua Gentile. Nobody does game day apparel like the Pants Store. They also have shoes and boots. They have dresses for the ladies, and they have those cleared purses so that you can grab those and get through the security line as quick as humanly possible. So zip on down to the Pants Store for all your game day needs.
All right, when we come back, we will hear from a couple of other coaches heading into big rivalry games this weekend and continue breaking down some of the weekend matchups. Rody Nabulsi coming up in 15 minutes. He gets us set on some of those Georgia injuries heading into Texas this weekend. All that and more next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. A couple of other coaches on games coming up this weekend. We mentioned Auburn heading to Columbia, Missouri, here at 9:22 a.m. Thursday, October 17th. We all think 27's got to be a big part of the game plan. Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz just on what he thinks Jarquez Hunter means to the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy with really good contact balance, has great vision, short area quickness, can really get into a hole and burst through it. He is a very difficult tackle. I think his size, he's able to run behind his pads. You know, the taller, bigger linebackers actually get caught in their chest trying to tackle him. So, you know, he is a really good running back. We played some really good ones so far this year, but he's up there with the best.
Don't want to catch Jarquez Hunter in the chest. That's sounds like Eli Drinkwitz's advice for the day. Stay away from that one. Also, Josh Heupel on the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry.
This rivalry's been around a long time before Nick Saban was a part of it, or I was a part of it. The magnitude of this rivalry is the historical nature and you know what it's meant inside of this league a lot.
Take us back, Greg, and just playing in this game, being a part of this game, kind of the meaning of this game. Now you get to call this game. Like, how do you describe it to somebody that's never seen it or doesn't know it?
You know, it's funny because when we were playing in this rivalry, Tennessee just wasn't the same Tennessee as they are now, right? I would have loved to have been there and have played against Tennessee when they were rolling. Unfortunately, we caught them at a time in which they were, I don't want to say in shambles, but they certainly weren't at their very best. So it was not one when I was in school that, you know, was something we talked about in the off season or anything. Like, we talked about Florida, who wasn't really even on our schedule, more so than we talked about Tennessee, but everybody hated Florida, so that was completely understandable. One thing that I appreciated, though, I mean, playing in Neyland, was how often they played Rocky Top, the checkerboard end zones, just the history. There's a crown on that field, too, so it's like a unique kind of like the crown was a little bit memorable, more so than some of the other surfaces that I played in. So I remember that. I remember how loud it was. I remember how terrible the visiting locker room was. I mean, the visiting locker room at LSU and the visiting locker room at Tennessee are the two worst. Very, very tight confines, not even lockers. You had basically hooks and a bench, and that was about it. So I remember that. I remember the first play in 2009, and Lane Kiffin and the Tennessee offense and staff said they couldn't communicate with the booth, so everyone had to take off their headsets. So I had to call the first three plays from memory. I remember the first third down, they brought a strong safety blitz with Eric Berry, which they hadn't run not a single time all season long, and they ran it on the first third down of the game. Almost got me. I got rid of it, but it was incomplete. I remember in the red zone in 2009, we had a lot of challenges. They were doing some press bail on Julio, and it just was kind of messing with our rhythm a little bit in the goal line passing game. I remember really feeling like the game was in cruise control. It was not that dissimilar, and I said this earlier in the week, it was not that dissimilar to the South Carolina game that Bama played last weekend, where it never felt like the game was going to be a fight to the end or one that could go until the final buzzer. Felt like we were in cruise control. We're up 12-3. Didn't do a great job in the red zone, but it is what it is. Our offense is on the field. We're putting the game on ice. We're running it and probably a few more snaps, and it's all she wrote. Well, next thing you know, Mark fumbled, and that was his first fumble that he had ever lost in his career. They hop on it. They go down and score. Now it's 12-10, and they're lining up for an onside kick. Boom, they get the onside kick. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like 2 seconds ago, we were in cruise control. Now we're fighting and scrapping for our lives. then they hit a big play and they get to a manageable field goal distance. I mean, I think Lincoln's field goal attempt was from like 42, thereabouts. And that kick was never going to be made. It was wide left from the get-go. And if you look at where Terrence Cody lined up on the field, like he should never be involved in a block with how far left he was. He was like over the left tackle. So that ball might have hit our band. But either way, I mean, it was just jubilation after the game. When it felt like it was almost relief because it felt like there was no business. We had no business losing that game, and we almost did. So it was crazy, but the 10 game was forgettable. Julio went off, had a couple of great catches in that game, and we wore him out pretty good. I remember trying to throw Brad Smelly on a cop route going right to left. We're on the left hash, and I should have hit the boom, the little out route to the left, and I tried to throw it to a cop route to Smelly, trying to get him his first career touchdown, and almost had it intercepted. But other than that, like that's the one play in that game that I really remember. A few others, I got decked a few times. They brought some safety pressures and had to hit a couple vertical throws that Julio caught, and didn't throw a touchdown pass against Tennessee in my career, which is kind of crazy, but did score in the checkerboard end zones on the QB sneak. So pretty special rivalry, and one that I'm glad to have had a part in.
Was it the right throw, or were you legitimately saying, hey, I want Brad Smelly to get his first touchdown catch?
No, they brought pressure, and I thought, like, my outlet to pressure, like I was hot. I should have thrown it in the flat. But I'm like, I can hang on to it a little longer. And I get hit, and it's high, and I should have.
But you didn't just say, like, hey, we're giving him his first touchdown here no matter what. We're throwing it to him. It wasn't like
no,
that
it
deal.
was not a predetermined, but I should have definitely checked it down. Another play in that 2010 game, they were a big field pressure. I don't know why. Why do you remember these things? It's like I can't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday, but I remember a check that I had in the game. So they were a big field pressure team, and we had a look where if they brought field pressure, we wanted to run stretch zone into the field pressure. We would make a call up front, and we'd run right into it. And sure enough, like I saw it, we called it, we flipped the run, and Trent ended up scoring. So anytime you make like a run check and it turns into a touchdown, that's like a really good feeling. So I remember that play. I remember getting blasted on a 4 vertical. I got hit hard and hit Julio on the middle cross. That almost scored. He got stopped at the 1 yard line. I wish he would have scored because I would have loved to have thrown a touchdown to Nealon, but never had that chance. So, but really, it was awesome. I remember too at the end of the game, AJ going in and throwing a big post, which was cool. So, it's just a cool rivalry. I mean, I couldn't tell you plays that happened against FIU or plays that happened. I remember plays from every game, but you remember the plays from games that mean something to the fans more than you do other games. And Tennessee being one of those, there are just a few plays that stick out to me for sure.
Absolutely. That's what makes it cool, are remembering plays like that and just everything being able to take you back. When we come back here on this show, Rody Nabulsi covers the Georgia Bulldogs. He'll give us updates on that team heading into their game with Texas next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Going to get to Rody Nabulsi here in just a moment. You'll have to wait for that, but one thing you never have to wait for, GMAC, is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care office where you can be seen the same day. We know it's tough to make dental appointments work for your schedule. That's why Family Care Dental's there. They're open on Fridays and Saturdays. They also can do the urgent care when you need immediate help on the same day. They also offer those routine cleanings that now offer free teeth whitening. Patients of all ages are accepted, and most insurance plans are accepted. So check them out in Hoover, Homewood, Alabaster, and Fultondale, and now open in Trustful. It's Family Care Dental, 874-9605. That's 874-9605.
Rody Nabulsi covers the Georgia Bulldogs. Roddy, great to have you in on the Buyers Right Hotline. We know how massive this game is this weekend. Give us a health update first and foremost, what you expect to happen for a couple of the Bulldogs that may or may not be in the lineup.
Well, you're not going to see Tate Radledge play. He's been out. Of course, Roderick Robinson's out for a while. Branson Robinson's out. So two of Georgia's tailbacks will be missing. Smile Munden just started against a linebacker, all SEC guy. He was out. I saw a bunch of people reporting that, it was breaking news and he was out. And I'm like, it's not breaking news. He was on crutches last week. I mean, it's not exactly a guy you expect to pop back up and run right in there. So we know maybe they can get it back to Florida. But, you're missing, as Kirby Smart said last week, all of our alpha leaders are on the sideline being cheerleaders. So you're missing some players, but they should be getting back Jared Wilson, the starting center. So that's the big news. And Jordan Hall might play for the first time all year, although I doubt you throw him in against Texas. That's just, that's kind of sketchy there. But if they can get their starting center back and Jared Wilson, although Drew Bobo is going to get a job, that could really help the offense, especially the run game. They've not been particularly great in the run game at this point. But if you get him back and, maybe get Michael Williams more than, this is a guy who's supposed to be a first-round draft pick. He played 11 snaps last week. If he gets up to 20 snaps, now all of a sudden you're starting to get some production out of the guys that, are all ranked in the preseason SEC polls, but that you just haven't been able to use a whole lot the last few games.
Yeah, I look at it, and I think the key to this game, though, is still really about Carson Beck. And frankly, while there are parts of this team that have been disappointing, the protection along the offensive line, disappointing. The lack of that guaranteed reliable target like you had last year, somewhat disappointing. The secondary and the coverage inconsistencies, disappointing. But Carson Beck's supposed to be that alpha dog dude that is a top 2 pick in the NFL draft potentially, and we just haven't gotten that. So we got it in the fourth quarter against Bama. Is that something that can be attained in a game like this?
Well, if he wants to be that guy, he needs to. And I wrote a column before the Georgia-Alabama game, and everyone wants to know, what's your prediction, what's going to happen? I said, Georgia will go as Carson Beck goes. Carson Beck is who he is, then, Georgia will win that game. And I'm not saying as being Mr. Obvious, of course, but in the first half, Carson Beck wasn't Carson Beck. He had, there were 4 different turnovers plus a safety. Then in the second half, Carson Beck was the guy that's supposed to go to New York for the Heisman, at least be invited, and he was amazing. And they came back and took the lead. So I expect the same thing. Texas is phenomenal. That's a great team, and I hate to say but here I will say but. They haven't faced a Carson Beck. They haven't faced a passing offense like this. And yes, they don't have Ladd McConkey. They don't have Brock Bowers. And last year, when we're doing a watch along with Coach Donna, we're watching the game. We got it on YouTube. Everybody's tuned in. We have tens of thousands of people watching us watch the game. And if it's 3rd and 8, Coach would say, just get it to 19. No crazy plays, no scheme, no nothing. He's just like, whatever you do, get it to 19. Get it to Brock Bowers. Or, okay, let's get Ladd McConkey here the ball. And it's like when you call a play and you put the tag on it, meaning I know there's 4 different routes on this play, but I want it to go here. And basically, Coach was calling the tags before the ball was snapped, saying this is what you need to do. There's no tag guy this year. You can't say, well, get it to Dylan Bell, get it to Arian Smith, get it to Dominic Lovett. Because, although they're all great, they're not Ladd McConkey, they're not Brock Bowers. So to your point about that, Carson's going to need some help. But it does all start with Carson Beck. And he's going up against a very good secondary at Texas, a good defense. But they haven't been tested like they will this coming Saturday.
One of my bigger concerns, and Rody Nabulsi is with us on the Buyers Right Hotline, UGAsports.com, at Rody Nabulsi, you find him on Twitter, is the tackles and pass protection. And even though it hasn't always led to a sack or even a quarterback hit, you can see that it's just not going great. And does that make it more onus on the tight ends, on the running backs this week? How do they make sure against a pretty good group of edge rushers that does not become a problem that cost them this game?
Well, they have not been great, but you're right. He hasn't really been hit a whole lot. There haven't been a lot of sacks. He's been pressured some, but at the same time, he gets the ball out super fast. Not as fast as Quinn Ewers. That guy just catches and releases. That's crazy. But I'm more actually concerned about the run blocking. The run blocking hasn't been phenomenal. This is a team that's this offensive line was supposed to be, in line for the Joe Moore Award. They returned 4 starters. It's like, okay, this is the first time you're not replacing everybody. And the center you're putting in, the guy we're talking about, Jared Wilson, is maybe the fastest offensive lineman I've covered in 30 years. This guy can fly. So you talk about a guy who can climb to that next level. Let's see it. And it just hasn't been there. So they've rotated some guys. They have Xavier Truss on the right tackle spot. He gets moved in sometimes. They bring in Monroe Fraley to replace him. They've taken out the starting left tackle and replaced him. It's kind of been Stacy Searles, offensive line coach, is kind of juggling, trying to figure out what is the best system to keep his quarterback upright and to move the ball when they need to run it. If they can't establish a run against Texas, they're going to get killed in that stadium. So they need to be able to establish that. And I hate to call out players, but Xavier Truss is almost always about to get into a fight. And he's had multiple stupid penalties this year. And it kills him, and they had a touchdown call back on a holding call on a different offensive lineman. It's just they keep shooting themselves in the foot. If they don't let the quarterback get hit or they don't pick up the run, making Trevor Etienne do it all by himself, they're causing stupid penalties on the backside. And this has been very uncharacteristic of a Kirby Smart team. They've always been able to run the ball. Their offensive linemen do not get penalized, and they make tackles on defense. And that's what we have not seen this year. We've seen the quarterbacks, not being able to run it, missed tackles, and lots of stupid penalties. And that's why this team just doesn't have the, people around the nation are like, this just doesn't feel like a Kirby Smart team. Yeah, because they're doing uncharacteristic things.
What about how the receivers have played? We've seen some drops. Bama game, gosh, there had to have been 5 drops in the game, maybe. Off the top of my head, I feel like that was about what I counted. It feels like there's more available for Lawson Lucky. I would anticipate him having a bigger role as the season progresses. But how do you think they feel about their wideouts at the moment?
Is meh a good description? I mean, these guys are good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of them will be drafted, but they don't have a Ryan Williams. They don't have a Jeremiah Smith. They don't, and like we said, they don't even have a Ladd McConkey. And they're really talented, but there have been drops. Everyone except Dylan Bell. Dylan Bell doesn't drop a whole lot. But Arian Smith, I put this out. This is a guy who's like in year 5, maybe the fastest player in college football. Arian Smith, number 11. I noted that he's Georgia's leading receiver. He's got 400 yards, and this guy hardly played at all his first 2 seasons. James Coley comes back. He gets, more into the rotation. He's blocking really well. But Georgia's leading receiver also leads the team in drops. And I'd put it out there, hey, congrats to Arian Smith having a good day or, good year. And half the Georgia fan base wanted to bench him. They're like, oh, he's terrible. I'm like, he's your leading receiver in receptions and yards and touchdowns. They're like, yeah, but he has so many drops. So there is that perception that even when Carson Beck does hit these guys in the hand, and Carson Beck's not always accurate. He throws a lot of balls behind, low. He's not always right on spot like he was last year. The balls fall down. And of course, everyone yells at Mike Bobo. So in that Alabama game, everybody wanted them to attack vertically. One long pass hits Arian Smith in the hands, he drops it. Second long pass goes to Dominic Lovett, and he gets offensive pass interference for pushing off. So it's like, okay, you got what you wanted for Mike Bobo attacking vertically, and now you're looking at 3rd and 10. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. So sometimes maybe just run the ball and try to get behind the sticks, or maybe catch the ball when you're throwing it 40 yards downfield, and the outcome of the game will be a lot different.
All those sound good to me, Roddy. We'll see if it can happen this weekend. By the way, Nicholas Harbor has like 111 speed on EA Sports, so you can't proclaim anybody faster than him. So, sorry.
No, impossible. But I put Arian Smith, the guy ran a 10.16 qualifying in that track. He actually ran for the SEC track championship in the men's 100 final. So that's pretty good.
He can burn. There's no doubt. Roddy, we always appreciate the time. Look forward to catch up with you again soon. Are you heading over to Austin?
No, I'm doing the watch along with Coach Don, and I'm sending a bunch of my staffers over there. But we'll be on YouTube at UGAsports.com, and everybody can watch Coach Don and call the plays before they happen.
There you go.
It's really a fun time.
We appreciate the time, Roddy. Look forward to catching up soon.
All right, thank you.
There you go. Roddy Nabulsi covers the Georgia Bulldogs, UGAsports.com. Going to be a massive matchup in Austin this weekend. A couple other things happening, too. Should be a busy weekend over there. Speaking of Eminem, I think he's performing in Austin this weekend.
He is, in fact, yeah. Yep.
Who's the other one?
Is it Pitbull? No.
No, it's
Coldplay?
Keep going.
Some band like that.
Is it Sting? I think it's Sting.
Maybe, yeah.
Man, how old is Sting?
I'm going to put it at 63.
How old's the other Sting?
His body is probably 30. His muscles, they've seen some younger days.
Over under. Who lasts longer? Sting musician, Sting wrestler?
Musician.
That tour life is rough, John.
He is 73.
The singer?
Correct.
I was going to say.
Wrestler?
You said 63. I was like, that's a lock.
You want to be older?
Yes.
Wrestler 65.
I would have guessed older than that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be old or young. You can be any age to go enjoy what Bromberg's has, Greg.
Yeah, Brom's got a great thing going on here these next couple of days as well. So if you run over to their store at the Summit, you're going to get 120% back in Bromberg store credit if you want to sell your jewelry, your diamonds, your watches, your collectibles. You can also get immediate payment if you want it, but they are doing a special right now. They're buying event at the Summit today and in Mountain Brook tomorrow. So go and check out those two locations. They have set the standard in fine jewelry, watches, giftware, but it's the customer service that takes your experience at Bromberg's to the next level. So go and see them in one of those two spots. Know this is a group that's been serving us for nearly 200 years, the oldest business firm in the state and the nation's oldest family-owned and operated retailer. So call the store today to schedule your appointment ahead, and you can always shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, a bad box score of the day to close it out next here on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Going to roll on in here to a couple of bad box scores of the day. We'll get to those in just a moment. If you're looking to roll out in a new vehicle, get tailgate ready this month from Royal Automotive. They want to help you do just that. Experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships, 1 location, selection, savings unmatched. Royal, only place to find over 19 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Now through October the 31st, get up to $14,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. 0% for 60 months is back. 2024 Volkswagen Tiguan models. Sign and drive select 2024, 2025 Volvo XC40, XC60, XC90 models. 0 down, 0 due at signing. 0 for your first payment. Certain restrictions apply. Go see my friends at Royal. Help you get the best deal available. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 of Vestavia. Online, royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. And remember, for